good to go.
We're
Hi.
good to go. Hi.
Oh my god. Welcome to
Couch Critics,
Cici.
aka Cici.
aka Sita.
My name is Lamia. This is my friend,
Ruby.
and this is our film podcast. So we're gonna be reviewing a few movies every Sunday.
And this is our first episode. This
Yes.
is finally happening. We've been talking about this
For ages.
Ages,
Yeah.
yes. And
Mhm.
I'm so happy we're finally doing it.
Yes, we're kind of nervous, but very excited at the same time.
Yes. Because we love movies.
We're huge cinephiles.
Yes. All right. So
All right.
today's movie, we're going to be reviewing Priscilla.
Mhm.
And we also watched Elvis last year.
Yes.
So there's going to be a lot of comparison.
Mhm.
Lemia is the one who got me into the Elvis biopic.
Mania.
What? Elvis Mania.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so happy though, because
Mhm.
it's been like two amazing movies.
Yes.
And yeah, how do we start? Like, what do we start talking about?
I feel like we could start talking about Elvis since it came out
Yeah.
earlier. And then we can talk about Priscilla and make a comparison and choose which one of those movies was our favorite.
Yeah, I think you already know which one is your favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. I feel like both of them were my favorite in different ways.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Elvis.
Elvis. So I've watched Elvis 10 times. It's definitely the movie that I watched the most ever.
And you brought everybody with you. Like every time Lemia would watch the movie, she brought someone. And at some point, this became like a recurring conversation. Like when I'd meet the similar friends we have in common, we'd ask each other, "Oh, so you watched Elvis with Lemia?" Yeah, I did that too. So
Exactement.
how was it?
Yeah, it was my mission in life at a certain point to just like make everyone watch Elvis because I felt like everyone needed to experience that movie because I definitely think that you can't watch it. You need to experience it because it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. And yeah, if it was available, I'd watch it again 10 more times.
I think it's different if you watch it on TV than if you watch it in the movie theater.
Definitely not the same experience. Yeah. I tried watching it a few days ago, just because I knew we were doing this podcast and I wanted to remember what it felt like to watch it, and it's definitely not the same. I'd highly recommend watching it in a cinema where it belongs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I went to see it, there was like this question that I kept asking myself, which was simply, why do I feel this urgent need to just go back and watch it? How is it so different from other biopics? And I've seen a lot of other biopics like Bohemian Rhapsody, the John Elton movie, and I didn't feel that need to like go see them to like wrap my head about them because I got the message of each of those movies like right after watching them. Whereas for Elvis, I felt like I got what the movie was about, but it was different every single time. So whenever I tried to bring someone else, I needed their perspective in order to see if like it matched mine. And yeah, to this day, I'm still confused on what's the movie about, other than a beautiful cinematic experience with beautiful shots, wonderful editing, incredible soundtrack, and outstanding acting, of course.
Yeah, and I completely relate to that because
Yeah.
I watched Elvis only once,
Mhm.
but I remember being so confused during the movie. Like up until the end, I understood the storyline. It's just that so much is happening all the time that
Mhm.
it's so hard to understand or to
Yeah.
feel with Elvis. Like I remember I feel like one of the first scenes, it was about him at the end, like his head in the water, or like he
Mhm.
was having an overdose or something.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole movie, while you watch it, it's as if we were on drugs with Elvis,
Yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
just, it's all over the place all the
Mhm.
time. It's crazy. But yeah, I loved it. And yes, the soundtrack, amazing.
Yeah.
We're still listening to, like, you sent me the song Toxic that I completely forgot was in the movie.
Yeah.
But I was listening to it the other day
Mhm.
and it was amazing. And the Tame Impala feature also,
Yeah.
The Edge of
Yeah.
Reality. Yeah, just amazing.
Well, the movie is definitely about Elvis' story. It's about his career, how it started, his battle with the, not really his battle with his manager, but like his relationship with his manager and how it's impacted and destroyed his life. Um, and yeah, it's you can definitely see the beautiful evolution of Elvis' career and Elvis as a person throughout the scene, and you do have enough time to see that because it's like a 3 hour movie. It's a very long movie, and I feel like there are some key scenes that like shows a certain big transformation. For example, like the opening scene was for me one of the most amazing cinematic scenes ever. That scene of young Elvis and the gospel when he first hear that music that he likes and he's just like in a sort of trance. You could see that he found a part of himself. And then you have also the trouble scene when he decides to rebel later on in his career, and by the end the Vegas rehearsals. And yeah.
I don't remember the first scene.
Mhm.
I don't remember it, but you talked
Yeah.
about the evolution, and I feel if you were to compare Elvis with Priscilla, they both Priscilla or Priscilla?
Priscilla.
Priscilla.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so. I'm not sure.
we'll call her Priscilla for now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel with Elvis, the evolution was more with his accent and his voice.
Mhm.
Was Priscilla, it was more her makeup and her
Yeah.
hair. And I like it's like the movies, both of them were like separated in
Mhm.
different phases of their lives in different ways, but also very similarly.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Also, speaking of Priscilla, I found it very interesting that we don't see her all the time in Elvis's movie, which for me is a way to show how important she was to Elvis, which is, I'm not doubting like a lot, but like she wasn't as important as his career, let's say, because we do see Elvis almost all the time in every shot with Priscilla in the Priscilla movie. And yeah, I think it's interesting to compare the screen time for actors for in like both movies.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
something that really marked me with the Priscilla movie is that it started when she met Elvis and
Mhm.
it ended when she got her divorce and she left
Yeah,
like the house. But with Elvis, the movie started when he was a kid and it ended up until like his last
exactly.
breath. And
Mhm.
maybe that's why like I feel like even Priscilla's movie, it was about Priscilla, yes, but it was about Priscilla's impact on Elvis's life.
Mhm.
Although I was like I was pleasantly surprised that her her movie wasn't really focused on Elvis. It was
Mhm.
mostly focused about her life and how she was alone in their house and everything. May Sisa Elvis still played a huge part in her
Yeah.
life, and we haven't seen that much in Elvis's movie.
Mhm.
Also, no doubt, she definitely was an important part of his life.
Yeah.
But it feels like with Elvis, there's two different love stories. It's him and Priscilla, and him and his music. Whereas with Priscilla, at least in the movie, it was mainly about her and Elvis.
Mhm. Um, I like to think that the love story in Elvis's movie is more his relationship with his mom. Um, to me, whenever he was on stage, the songs were towards like they were for his mom because he was very attached to her and she had like a great impact on his life. Um, I'm still trying to figure out the silver lining of Elvis, the movie, obviously. But to me, at this point, what I think is the silver lining for both Elvis and Priscilla is that they both were stuck in like this silver cage, and this silver cage is called circumstances, and it translates to everyone's life, like even you and I and like normal people. But yeah, like each one of them handled that differently, and Elvis used drugs to cope with that, whereas Priscilla drug was Elvis. Um,
I like that. Priscilla's drug was Elvis.
exactly, and yeah, yeah, I can't say that they could have done anything differently because it's addiction, and I've never had to deal with that, and um, I don't know.
I do feel like Priscilla's drug was able to wear off. Like at some point, she did realize how
Mhm.
toxic the relationship was, which is why
Yeah,
she got her divorce. With Elvis, it just escalated. With Priscilla, it was more contained. And
mhm.
I feel like that's the main difference between the two movies.
Yeah.
Elvis's movie was all over the place. The music, everything. There
Mhm.
was like the highs were too high and the lows were too low.
Because his life was kind of like that. So
Yeah.
I feel like the movie translated what was actually happening in his life, the highs, the very lows too. And yeah, I just remember like leaving the movie sad every single time that I've watched that movie. And I feel it's because Elvis serves as a cautionary tale for everyone, that if you're not careful, if you're not comfortable in your own silver cage, it will tighten its grip around you, and you'll be lost forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have Priscilla. She's like she escaped the cage, and it's a different, like, you don't know to what extent she escaped it because the movie ends when she leaves Graceland. But yeah, I'd love to have a part two, Priscilla, to see
Yeah.
what who is she without
After.
Elvis
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially that Elvis died in 77, which means
Hmm.
it's been almost 50 years. I still cannot believe it. Like, we were listening to
Yeah.
Piers Morgan's interview with her,
Hmm.
and he said that he died 50 years ago. And at first, I thought that I misheard him,
Hmm.
and I thought he said 15. And then I Googled it, and
It's
I was like,
50.
it's
Yeah.
50.
Mhm.
That's a long time. And his impact, he's still Elvis Presley, like people still
We're
talk
still
about
talking
him.
about him, yeah.
Yeah, it's
To
crazy.
this day. When it comes to Priscilla, I we can we just move to Priscilla?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
We're probably gonna go back to Elvis eventually. Like, we're gonna keep comparing
definitely.
both of them, but yeah, we could talk about Priscilla.
So, what I thought when I was watching, first of all, when I watched Priscilla, I often felt a little bit bored, which also happened to me when I watched Marie Antoinette, which is another Sofia Coppola
Coppola movie.
movie. And I think the boredom that you feel from time to time due to the repetitive scenes, and then like the repetitive actions of the actors in the scene, um, is not a random thing, because it's trying to show you the boredom that Priscilla might have felt being in
In her life,
Graceland
yeah.
alone without Elvis just waiting. And it just, you could feel the weight of waiting.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to be in her own silver cage, no matter how pretty it looks. It's like life stopped whenever Elvis wasn't around, and it just, she was back to life whenever he was back.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, were you
Mhm.
bored because the movie was boring, or were you bored because it seemed as if Priscilla's life was boring?
No, definitely, the movie wasn't boring. It's a very, very interesting movie, and a very beautiful and aesthetically pleasing movie.
Yes.
But I just feel like the boredom was on purpose. Like, you
Yeah.
had long sequences where she was just wandering around the house, sitting in their living room, not doing anything. And it happened a few times. So when it happened on like the third or second time, I asked myself, like, why are we seeing this?
Yeah.
You have the Elvis movie with so many, like, it's almost like your brain is too stimulated.
Yes.
And then you're watching Priscilla, and you kind of expect the same from someone who's dating this like huge superstar, like the
Yeah.
biggest star out there. And no,
It's
it's
not.
it's not as exciting as it seems. And I wish I could see more of like Elvis, his impact in the Priscilla movie. Because if I didn't watch the Elvis movie and I just went to see Priscilla, I wouldn't know why she was like so bamboozled by him from the start. Like I don't see his sa grandeur, like his impact and like the his level of fame. And something that I've noticed is that they only played one like song during the movie, which I found kind of almost weird because it's you're making a movie about someone who was heavily impacted
Yeah.
by this other person. So I want to see more of the impact to understand why she was impacted that much.
Him.
Yeah.
Do you think that Priscilla, and that's extremely personal, it's not that much about the
Hmm.
movie as it is about like opinions, but do you think that Priscilla liked Elvis because she was impressed in his music or just because he was Elvis Presley and everybody else liked him? And, having, if you had his attention, it's not like something you would want to miss out on. Like,
I do understand why Elvis wanted to be with Priscilla to some extent because when he met her when he lost his mom, he was really lonely. He was alone in his cage, silver cage again. And whereas this is why I wanted to see more of the impact of Elvis on Priscilla's life before meeting him, so that I get why she just like gave up on everything to be with him. Although like I do realize that he's a star and she was a kid, but I would have preferred to see more of that because when she started dating him, when she moved to Graceland and everything, it made more sense because she was in her own silver cage. She was stuck there. We could see Elvis's impact on her, the isolation that happened. And yeah, I feel like there was a missing element for me to believe why she just was so adamant on like leaving everything and just going away, whether it was a bad home situation or something that I've noticed in Sofia Coppola's movies is that she talks a lot about boredom for white, mostly white privileged girls. And you could see this theme in almost all of her movies. And for me, maybe although I'm looking for a deeper reason, maybe that was just a reason. She was a kid who was bored. She met this amazing superstar, and she got excited. She got addicted to this exciting life, and she
it's hard
left.
to come back from it
Yeah.
once you have it. Like it's not something, I don't suppose it's
Mhm.
something you can easily give up once
Yeah.
you have it, or like, Priscilla had it. But I was wondering, do you think Priscilla would have been Priscilla without Elvis, and do you think Elvis would have been Elvis without Priscilla? Because
Mhm.
he did, like in Piers Morgan interview, Priscilla said that she, like, Elvis liked her because she listened, and even her, she asked herself like, why would he want to be with me?
Yeah.
But then she said that it's because she was a good listener and she was always there for
Mhm.
him. And we see that in the movie, she would wait by the phone for him to call her,
Yeah.
and he would call her every day at the same time
Mhm.
and everything. So yeah, would Elvis be
I
Elvis without Priscilla?
feel like Elvis would have been the same without Priscilla because the way that from what I saw in both movies, Priscilla was an extension of Elvis. She only existed under Elvis's shadows. Whereas I don't think that Priscilla would have been the same without Elvis. Like, I feel like definitely because she was a kid, she was still a teenager, 14 years old, and she could have had different experiences, which would have made her into a different person. But yeah, what about you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like we're in this parallel universe kind of
Hmm.
theories.
Yeah.
And I feel, I don't know if anybody else would have been the same for Elvis. At the same time, he was in Germany when he met
Hmm.
Priscilla.
Yeah.
I don't know if there would have been anybody like her in that place. Because, if it was in the States, maybe he would have met somebody else, or
Hmm.
like people who would have been more the same. But when he talked about Priscilla in her movie, he said that he liked her because she reminded him of home.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was something that was that much available in Germany where he was. So I feel like she helped him during a really tough time in his life. And whether it was just because it's Priscilla or
Mm,
if maybe it could have been any other girl that reminded him of home. But I think that it's the perfect match of, having the right person at the right time. Like he had a good listener in the right place in
mhm.
Germany who reminded him of home.
Yeah,
And that was like the perfect mix for that.
it does make a lot of sense because I feel like the reason why he tried to kind of change her by changing her hair color, making her wear more makeup, was to actually, I know it's very weird, but she started looking like his mom at a certain point. So I don't know how accurate that is, but I think that she definitely reminded him of his mom.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
something he did subconsciously because he was the
Mhm.
one who advised her to change her hair color.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's something she did because even in the movie, we see her when
Mhm.
she was walking in the hallways at school. Like we hear
Yeah.
people saying, "Oh, she changed her hair for him." Did she
And
do it for him, or did she also do it a bit for herself?
also I think she did it more for him because by the end of the movie she started looking like her 14-year-old self. Like her hair was
Yes,
back to brown and she started dressing differently right
less eyeliner.
after. Exactly. And I don't think it's very common for someone to be very specific about how someone else should wear, what someone else should wear, or like how they should do their makeup or their hair. So I feel like for Elvis, it was very important for Priscilla to look a certain way, not because of looks, but it was something deeper. And to me, that was the reason. It's because she did remind him of home, and that was the familiarity in their relationship.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the breakup scene when she left, and how in both movies the same
Line.
lines were used.
Yeah.
I just thought that was very beautiful because it shows how kind of accurate the movies are. And I know that the real Priscilla Presley was very involved in like the making of both movies. So it's
It was the same
yeah,
home in both movies, and it was Elvis's home, like the
yeah,
real home.
the real
I love
Graceland.
it. I also love how in both movies there were different actors,
Mm,
but both of them had a very accurate
yeah.
like comparison to the actual people, to Elvis. Like with Austin Butler, I felt like I was seeing Elvis's like videos in front of
Hmm.
me. I obviously wasn't born when Elvis
Yeah.
was still alive, but I do feel like it did have the same vibe as
Hmm.
Elvis Presley, and the same went with who was the other actor who played
Jacob Elordi.
Jacob
Yeah.
Elordi, right? And with Jacob Elordi, I love that even though the movie was about Priscilla and Elvis and their relationship, he didn't take that much space in Priscilla's movie.
Hmm.
Like the idea of Elvis is the center of the story,
Yeah.
but not Elvis as a character.
Hmm.
He barely had any lines. I don't remember hearing.
Jacob Elordi.
Yeah,
I No, he didn't have he had a lot of screen presence, but
yeah,
not that many line. Yeah.
no,
Hmm.
not compared to Elvis's movie. I feel like Austin Butler's presence, well, because the movie was
Yeah.
about Elvis, it was so big, but in Priscilla, it
Yeah.
was compared to the first movie, it was
Hmm.
way less, and I feel
It
like that's the
was
point.
he had enough presence to show that he wasn't always present, but he was still present.
Yes.
He was always either filming a movie or on tour or like doing something with his friends, and yeah, until he wasn't.
I also remember laughing so hard about how most of the times when they were in like social events or stuff
Yeah.
like that, Elvis was his like backup boys.
Yeah, oh my god,
That
that
was so
was
funny.
very funny. The backup friends who were also in the first Elvis movie, the
Yeah.
Baz Luhrmann movie, and I still don't understand why they were there. I guess they were some kind of assistants too.
It's
Yeah.
so funny. It's just like having a backup, like I don't know how to say it. It's like a squad or like a boy
That
band and
just
like
follows you around
yes.
everywhere. Like, yeah, that's funny. Um, I read a review this morning about how this was the second Sofia Coppola movie that like showed that had a happy ending because all of her other movies, the like characters always kind of die. They die or like they go to jail, the lingering. And this was the first one where you had a female character that had a happy ending. So
I mean, Priscilla is
yeah,
still alive, you know,
yeah.
so I don't see how there would be a sad ending to that. But maybe if they ended the movie with Elvis's death, that would have been a
Mhm.
sad ending. But because it
Yeah.
ended with the divorce, it was more of a happy, independent kind
Mhm.
of movie ending. How old was Priscilla when they got a divorce? Do you know, like when
I
she
think
left?
she was, because in the last line when she was leaving him, he told her, "I'll meet you again when I'll be 50 and you'll be 40." And
Yeah,
that means they're not 40 and
yeah,
50,
yeah,
so I guess maybe in her late 20s or
yeah. I
late
think late
30s.
20s.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when life starts in general, like
Yeah.
mid to late 20s. That's when you've figured stuff out, your
Mhm.
career has taken off, and things are happening. And I feel like
Yeah.
this is why it's a happy ending. It's because Priscilla's life as Elvis's girlfriend or Elvis's wife was ending, but her life as just Priscilla was
Mhm.
starting.
I think so too. Okay, controversial question. Who was the better Elvis? Austin Butler or Jacob Elordi?
Oh my God. It's so hard to ask that question because I mean, Austin Butler was Elvis. He was
Mhm.
the Elvis.
Yeah,
Like he was the main character. He was Elvis, you know, he was the singer, he was
he
everything. We
did.
heard him sing, we saw him
Yeah.
perform, we saw his ups and downs. We don't see that variety with Jacob's
Mhm.
like performance. We see him angry sometimes. We see him being Elvis. We see him more as a celebrity as we see him as
True.
a person.
Mhm.
So I would choose Austin Butler, of course.
Um, I know it's not fair to choose because
Yeah.
like they had the same role but like different circumstances. But yeah, I loved listening to every like single interview that Austin Butler gave because he was so committed to that role that you could like if I were him, I would just retire after doing that movie because
He
he
went to
transformed
Yeah.
completely. I From what I heard, from what he said, he did like acting method. He turned into Elvis, started speaking like him, started he dyed his hair black, even changed the way that he drank his coffee in the
Didn't he
morning.
break up with his girlfriend because he was
That's
playing
what I
Elvis?
heard.
And he also ended up at his like psychiatry facility after the movie because it burned him
I
out.
heard in one interview that like right after they filmed that scene where he had water thrown at him. It's the scene where it's one of the most beautiful scenes, by the way. It's when they play the Edge of Reality song, the
Yeah.
Tame Impala and Elvis Presley song, and you could see Elvis just like having water thrown at him. Then he turns into this record player that turns into so many things are happening in that scene. Anyways,
And we barely understand
so
a thing.
from what I saw in the interviews and from what I heard, that was the last scene that was filmed, and he was very exhausted after that, so he needed
Yeah.
help
It was
to
heartbreaking.
recover. Mhm.
Just watching that scene was
Yeah.
I it was heartbreaking seeing him not being able to perform and
Mhm.
having all of these drugs and water and stuff thrown at him just so that he could go and do his
I
performance.
think we're talking about different
Okay.
scenes because
Yeah.
I'm talking about the scene where yes, he has water thrown at him, but like they're filming a music video
Okay.
and he's
I
like
don't
on a
remember that.
surfboard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that was the last scene, and I know that like one of the early scenes was the comeback special,
Okay.
with the leather costume.
Costume, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it when they told him not to do anything like
yeah.
overdone and he just raises his pinky?
No,
No.
that
I'm
was
so
in the
confused
middle.
right now. I
I know
haven't
because
watched the movie 10
those
times.
were like very similar costumes, but yeah, by the end he has like this. He's in a show and he plays this comeback. It's a comeback show basically that he did, and he wore a leather suit that was apparently very hot. And yeah, the trouble scene that you're referring to is I don't know when it was filmed, but it was a very beautiful scene too.
Yeah.
Very, it definitely goes to show the impact that Elvis had on politics and how his music not only inspired people but also helped them rebel against certain laws that were there to make them
Restrain
more
it. Yeah.
fragile. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like he reframed music, he reframed arts, he reframed
yeah.
fashion for men in general,
Mhm.
and dancing and
Yeah,
performing.
I know that the fact that his music, his dances were very inspired from black
Jazz. Yeah.
culture, and it was very controversial, but I feel like he always tried to never deny that.
Yeah.
And he always said that he always talked about his inspiration. So yeah, I really love Elvis.
I love it too.
Yeah. What was your favorite Elvis song if you listen to Elvis?
Oh my God, one of my favorites, and it's also one of my dad's favorites. It's I remember because every time I hear it, I feel like I'm back with my dad in the
Yeah.
car in Beirut. But it was um, "You Were Always on My Mind."
Okay.
Yeah, and I just love it because it
Mhm.
has a very personal like value. I didn't even know it was Elvis Presley,
Okay.
but yeah,
I
when
love
after
that
watching
song.
the movie, I
Mhm.
remembered that like I figured out that it was him, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been listening to that song since I was a kid, and I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
What about you? Favorite Elvis song?
I really like Edge of Reality. Probably one of my favorites. If I Can Dream is very empowering, I find. And if I had to, oh, I really like Little Less Conversation.
You know, you played it the other day in a story that you posted on
Yeah,
Instagram, and I've been hearing, like, I've been listening to it ever since. I
I
loved
love
it.
that. It's so
Yeah.
it's such a fun song.
And it feels like a classic. I feel like I've been
Yeah.
hearing it everywhere. I
Mhm.
again didn't know it was Elvis Presley. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's also this song in the movie. It's a Yola song. It's called Strange Things Are Happening All the Time. And it's such an empowering song about not accepting what is imposed on you and how to stand up for yourself against everyone, against the rules, against what's right, what's supposed to be right, and how to speak up for others because it's your job to speak up.
Do you think that Elvis did that? Because in his movie, it feels like the
Mhm.
colonel what was like in control of a lot of things in his life. So
Mhm.
do you think that he was in control, or do you think that he was following orders?
I think that he was in control before his mom died,
Okay.
because I feel like he was lost when she left, because he used to like she was in I don't know how to say it, repère.
Yeah, like she was the North for him. She was
Yeah,
the yeah, repère. What is repère in English? No,
she was
the
his.
compass. His compass. His
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
So Elvis's mom was his compass, and when he lost her, especially so absurdly and without any warning, like I don't think she was sick. She died from drinking, from what I understood in the
Yeah.
movie. Um, the colonel,
Yeah.
his manager, he used that as an opportunity to just like
Control.
step on, act as a mom, act as a dad, especially if we're gonna talk about his dad. His dad was there, but he wasn't really there at the same time.
Did you know that after his mother passing away, apparently his dad started dating somebody else with three other kids, and
Wow.
apparently that really bothered Elvis. And
No.
maybe that's also why he went to Priscilla because,
Hmm.
like, I feel like at some point he felt like he had nobody else.
Yeah. So this manager who had this parental figure of authority was very credible, because he just he put himself in the position of a parent. So I feel like for Elvis, it was normal for him to just assume that his manager has his best interest, because he wasn't just a manager, he was his
He was very
parental
involved,
figure.
yes,
Yeah,
in his family and
yeah.
everything.
So that definitely does explain why he never questioned anything that the colonel did. So yeah. How do you feel about Tom Hanks' performance? Like, well, I've heard a lot of controversial stuff about it.
I liked it.
Same.
I really I didn't have anything bad to say about it.
Yeah.
I also heard a lot of that. I've heard that he was criticized for his role and everything,
Mhm.
but I think he did such a great job. And
Yeah.
all through the movie, I was not thinking this is Tom Hanks. I was
Me
thinking
neither.
this is a colonel.
Yeah.
This is Elvis Presley's manager.
Mhm.
And see, that's also what's confusing about the movie. Was the movie about Elvis or was the movie about the colonel? Like perspective of Elvis and his life, because I
Um,
remember it starts with him in the hospital and it ends with him also in the hospital,
yeah.
if I remember correctly. But
I think that well, what Baz Luhrmann tried to do is that he wanted the colonel to narrate
mhm.
the movie, and so we're supposed to believe that it's from his perspective. But I feel like the events were pretty accurate because I just like to believe that since Priscilla was involved, like it has to be a little bit accurate.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I did love Tom Hanks' performance because I felt like Austin Butler's performance was at times very heavy, and it needed some other performance that would bring a little bit of
yeah.
lightness. Yeah,
I don't know why, but every time I think about Tom Hanks in that movie, I see a clown. Like I don't know why,
same. Or
but
like an evil like
yeah,
Disney Channel.
yeah, with the
Yeah,
music, da, 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 da,
yeah,
that's what goes through my head, and
same.
it's just so funny. But
So,
yeah.
which movie did you like the most?
See, that's the tricky question
Mhm.
because I feel like Elvis's movie was more was more enjoyable. It was more, not that it was more enjoyable, but it was more like a walk into a,
Flashy, yeah.
yeah, into it's a fête foraine, c'est
Yeah.
quoi? Like I feel like I was on a roller coaster.
Circus,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was a circus, Elvis's movie, but Priscilla's was more focused on the
It's very
character.
funny, sorry I stopped you,
Yeah.
that you describe him as a circus because the colonel described Elvis in the movie as an attraction.
Yeah.
And he said this is the biggest attraction that I could sell to people. So I feel like he did sell him to us.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it's as if he objectified him, like he
Mhm.
wanted, like he turned him into like something that you can sell. It's
Yeah, he
crazy. But yeah, I feel like Priscilla's movie, I love how they were both very different. Priscilla's movie was more laid back, it was more relaxed. I wasn't on the edge of my seat at
mhm.
any point, but I like that. I like the fact that it was, Priscilla's movie was like watching a YouTube like morning routine or a
Yeah,
night routine,
yeah,
with
very
the
girly.
aesthetic. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very girly.
yeah.
The
Mhm.
wallpapers, like the her routines,
Yeah.
her journeys, her at school. It was more relaxing and
Mhm.
enjoyable.
Mhm.
And I remember it ending, and I was like, okay, that's it. Like it just ended.
I
I
felt the same. It did end very abruptly. I did not expect it to be that short.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it wasn't short. It's just that
it just
it
felt
felt
short
short.
because it was very fast paced.
Yeah,
Although we did describe it as
relaxing.
relaxing, whereas Elvis's movie is very fast paced as well, but it's long, like as you
Yeah,
describe it at the beginning of the podcast. It's like taking drugs, although I've never taken drugs,
me neither.
but it's like what I would imagine
Yes.
like taking
Yeah.
drugs would
That's
be,
that's also what I meant
and
when
being
I,
on a
yeah.
high and then like just crushing.
That's what we watch, why we watch movies, for
Yeah,
like the
for the
high,
high.
yeah, for the highs and lows. I, yeah, love
Don't
it.
get high on drugs, get high on
No.
movies.
Exact. Oh, this should be our
Yeah.
this should be our motto.
Intros.
Intros. And remember, don't get high on drugs, get high on
All
movies.
movies, always.
Always with popcorn.
And popcorn. No popcorn.
No popcorn.
I
Right.
hate snacks at the
Yeah,
movies. Very
that's true.
controversial too.
Yeah.
I feel like they should be banned.
I think your ache is hearing somebody eat popcorn
Because
while
I
watching a
feel like
movie.
whenever people are eating and watching stuff at the
You
same
don't
time, they
focus.
don't focus, so they don't realize how loud they can
Yeah.
be, and it's very
I also,
hard for me to just like sit there and shut
yeah.
up and not say anything about it.
I
Yeah,
hear like I cannot hear movies if I'm chewing. Like it's just I can't
same.
focus.
Mhm.
But that's the beauty of watching a movie in the cinema is that by the time the movie started, you
Mhm.
finished eating your popcorn because of all the ads before.
Yeah,
It's just a
yeah.
joke, but what about you? What was your favorite one?
um, I'm a huge Baz Luhrmann fan, so I feel like my opinion is very biased. Uh, Elvis was my favorite. Would always I was heavily impacted by three scenes in that movie: the gospel scene, the trouble scene, and even like before the trouble scene, the strange things are happening all the time. Uh, Scene and the Vegas rehearsal scene, and I feel like, especially for the middle of the movie, it's very, very, very empowering because it's more than just Elvis's story. It's a story about s- being not belonging to oneself, belonging like giving yourself to everyone else, and not belonging to your own self, not
Yeah.
belonging to anyone, because you everyone is trying to own a little piece of you, and they need that piece in order to like empower themselves and to move for. I don't know if what I'm saying is making any
It
sense, but
makes total
I'm trying to
sense.
make
Yeah.
sense of it as I'm
I'm
speaking.
as you're saying this,
Yeah,
I'm remembering the scenes where all the girls were like throwing themselves at
yeah.
him when he was at concerts and things like that.
Mhm.
And it is overwhelming to experience that because sometimes we
Exactly.
forget that artists are just other human beings and
Mhm.
the way that like
But I feel like it's for someone like Elvis, it's impossible to see him as a human being. He's not. He's simply not. He's something that's like greater than a human being, and I feel like one of the reasons why him and Priscilla broke up is because she could never have him in the first place. He belonged to everyone.
yeah,
Everyone had a right to him, and
everyone I don't think everybody had a right to him. I feel everybody felt entitled to him. Everybody
exactly.
thought they had a right to him.
But I feel like that's something that he wanted in some way. He it's something that broke him too. The fact that was so addicted from he was so addicted to that love from all of these people, all of this validation. He reached a point where nothing was enough, and yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what's the silver lining for both
Yeah.
movies, but I just find Elvis to be very empowering, especially with everything that's going on politically right now. I'm not gonna speak on it, but like whenever I hear a song like "Strange Things Are Happening," "Trouble," "If I Can Dream," it just gives me hope, and I feel like Elvis gave hope to people who were hopeless,
Yeah.
and I know he was a great character. He had like this good side and a bad side, but I can't help but just focus on the good side. I don't know how toxic that is.
I mean, he had the right to have bad sides because
Yeah.
he is a human being, but his good
Mhm.
sides are what impacted us. I mean,
Yeah.
his negative sides, they were never harmful to anybody, like to
Mhm.
any of his fans. Maybe I don't know about his like closer friends or Priscilla at some point. I don't know if that had a negative impact on her,
Mhm.
but I feel like the positive he had was something that
Yeah.
everybody was able to enjoy
Yeah.
and learn from and be inspired by, and that's the good thing.
Definitely.
Would you watch Priscilla 10 times?
I would watch Priscilla a second time.
Hmm.
I don't know about 10 times,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's impossible to understand a movie by watching it once, because you don't you only focus on what you're hearing when you're watching it the first time, whereas when you see it the second time, you see more stuff that you might have not seen at the beginning. You start noticing the colors, the choices that have been made, the acting, and yeah, my opinion is very biased. It took me so much time to even like Elvis. I remember when I first watched Elvis, I didn't like it.
Oh yeah.
Weirdly, yeah.
Did you like get out in the middle of the movie?
Yeah, I left
Okay.
halfway through the movie,
Oh my
and
god.
I somehow went to see it again the next day.
What made you watch it again?
The playlist.
Okay.
I think I I got to the part the first time where they played the Edge of Reality
Reality.
song, and I really started listening to it the next day, and I'm like, okay, I want to see what's the rest of the movie, because I wasn't an Elvis Presley fan before
Okay.
watching the movie, so there was no reason for me to watch it in the first place.
Yeah.
And when I went to see it the second time alone in the movie theater, and I remember I was literally alone, like in the cinema, and it was something out of this world. You could
Yeah.
I was very immersed in it, and it was, to me, it was all about connecting with another human being, and I feel like this movie showed the humanity in Elvis that no one could see. Yeah.
That happened. I feel like it happened mainly because, or thanks to Priscilla,
Mhm.
since she had a huge like part in
Yeah.
making the movie. I feel like that's what she wanted, and she wanted his legacy to keep going. And it's great because Elvis is not an artist who's in our time.
Mhm.
He passed away way before our generation, but through these movies our generation gets to rediscover
Yeah.
him and enjoy him all over again. And you
Mhm.
know that's just amazing. It's his legacy keep like being pursued and
Definitely.
keep
That's
going.
why I really like biopics. I know a lot of like movie lovers don't like them because they feel like cheap movies, or like movies that everyone is predestined to like
Because we like
because they
the
already
artist,
have
we're
a
gonna
fan
like, yeah.
base. But I feel like Elvis is like the movie obviously is like the the tutorial to what other
Biopics
biopics should
should
aspire
be
to
like,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree and disagree
Okay.
because I feel like it was because it was all over the place. I don't think it's something. It had a lot of ups and downs, and sometimes the storyline was went back and forth. I think it's something that would only work with Elvis
Hmm.
because it's how Elvis's life was, but I don't think it would have worked with any other artist.
Hmm.
So yeah,
But exactly, like I feel like they translated what his life was
yeah.
like on screen, and that's what other movies, biopics should like aspire to do. I didn't like the Elton
I didn't
John
even know there was an Elton
movie,
John movie. You were
as you
saying
can
it.
tell.
You were saying
Not a
it
big
at the
fan.
beginning, and I was like, wait a minute. There's an Elton John biopic? I've never heard of it.
Really,
Yeah, I watched Bohemian Rhapsody, loved
Bohemian
it.
Rhapsody was great.
But Elton
Didn't
John, I
I
don't
wasn't
know.
very impacted by it when I've seen it, but I thought it was fun.
No, I liked it.
Yeah.
I cried by the end of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved Rami Malek's
Performance.
performance.
Yeah.
I loved the music as well. I
Hmm.
loved how everything. And there's this thing that biopics do. They try to recreate the concert moments,
Yeah.
and I feel in movies it's like what's a make or break.
Hmm.
It's either works or it doesn't
Yeah.
work, and I felt like it worked with both with Elvis and Bohemian
Hmm.
Rhapsody.
But I feel like for Elvis, they took it to another level because
Yeah,
Austin Butler actually sang in the movie.
yeah.
He's the one singing the Trouble song, and you could actually find his version on Spotify, which is very brave because he's not a singer. And I also like loved the use of background actors and how involved they were in the movies.
They had a
And
role. They were
yeah,
like, I feel like the fans
mhm,
were a character of their own.
because they were
Yeah,
definitely what shaped him as a person. So I've heard that like even when they were like doing scenes where they weren't like when they didn't need background actors, they were still there because Baz wanted Austin to be very inspired and to make everything as realistic as
whoa,
possible.
that must have cost
Yeah,
a fortune.
yeah.
But it's worth
They
it.
filmed in Australia, so I don't know if it's
Yeah,
cheaper there
I don't
than
know.
here.
See, this is something AI will never be able to do. Come,
Yeah.
you can't you can't give the actor that feeling if
Hmm.
you just have AI doing
Exactly.
the acting.
You know, Priscilla was filmed in Toronto.
I feel like you've told me that,
Yeah,
but I forgot.
but
And
they had no background actors. We could have. applied.
We could have had. Oh my god.
They didn't need to
They didn't
any
need
background
us because
actors.
Priscilla doesn't have
Yeah.
fans. Well, not in that. I'm pretty sure she has a lot of fans, but she
Yeah.
doesn't have like audience.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant.
So, was there anything that you wanted to add about any of the movies, Elvis or Priscilla?
I think that was it.
Okay.
In comparison, one last thing actually I
Yeah.
wanted to add. No, it wasn't it. There's one more point.
Okay.
It's mainly the relationship between Priscilla and her daughter. And I
Yeah.
felt like it was portrayed in different ways in both movies.
Mhm.
I feel in Elvis's movie, Priscilla seemed more in contact with her daughter, and in the second movie, her daughter wasn't playing that much of a big role. But I remember there's this one scene where they're taking the picture,
Mhm.
the family picture together, and her daughter was closer to the nanny than she was to Priscilla. Like she
Yeah.
was happier when the nanny was
Mhm.
holding her than when her mother was holding her. And I don't know, that really marked me. I felt like this was kind of sad. I don't know if that's a
Mhm.
picture of the whole relationship or if that was just the moment, because kids, they go through phases as
Mhm.
well. But yeah, I don't feel like their daughter had that. I felt like she had more place in Elvis's movie than she did
Mhm.
in Priscilla's movie.
I think kind of the same, but not really, because I feel like for me, Lisa Marie was a turning point for Priscilla. Because I remember in the Sofia Coppola movie when she was getting ready and like she was preparing her daughter's clothes, and she was still pregnant back then. Elvis called her to his office and he told her that they needed to take a break. And that was the first time where she didn't overreact, where
Yeah,
she didn't, because whenever he said that in the past, she would start crying and like
yeah,
it would be a lot of tears and screams and etc. But I felt like during that scene when she just acted nonchalantly, like she didn't
she didn't
care,
care.
I feel like it was because she finally had another reason and to not care, and like she had something else to care about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And I feel like maybe that's the moment when Priscilla's life stopped revolving around
Hmm.
Elvis and it
Yeah.
started revolving around her daughter. Well, I don't,
Hmm.
maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I feel like that's a representation of
Yeah.
mothers in general. Like, I feel like when moms start having kids, I don't know if it's in general or not, but I feel like they start focusing more on their kids
Yeah.
than on other
Their
things, and
husbands. Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
Hmm.
Start realizing that that's the love of your life and not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
very tragic that to know that today Priscilla's still alive, but her daughter
Yeah,
died,
and her
and
grandson.
her grandson. Yeah, I can't imagine
Yeah,
having these many losses. Yeah. So this is your sign to watch, to rewatch Elvis and to go watch Priscilla
Priscilla.
and
Yeah,
form your own thoughts about it. And
maybe leave the comments in the comments whatever you think about either movies.
yes, let us know. Subscribe, like this video if you want to hear more of our
Reviews.
messy, unfiltered thoughts about movies. And we're going to
Yes.
be making
More.
more videos
Yes.
every Sunday. So we'll see you
Stay tuned.
guys next Sunday.
Yeah, see you next Sunday and thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.